One of the best ways to learn about new code is to actually tinker around with the new code. So I'm going to walk you through this file, but then I'm going to let you have this file to play around with yourself. So first thing is, remember, string variables are not primitive data, they are reference variables. And so here I have created 3 new string objects. I've created one example with words that's assigned to str1. I've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which remember is not a numeric literal because it's inside quotes, so it is a string, and that's assigned to str2. And then the third one, I've used the formal constructor with the word new, so many options with strings, and assigned that to str3. And then I created str4, which is assigned str1. And so if I were to compile this and run it, which I have a lot of print line statements, I'll have to scroll. You'll notice here str4 says example with words, just like str1 did. So remember with our indexing, we start at 0. And so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including spaces, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, etc. And then this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then with our new string, I just went ahead and marked it because it is so long. And so this is the 10th index position, and this is the 20th at the space. Okay, so let's go through different ideas that I talked about in part 1. So first, concatenation mixed with math operations. So remember str1 was examples with words. And so what's happening here is I'm taking examples with words and I'm adding to it the sum of 5 plus 2, and that's going to be 7. Compare that to this next one. I don't have 5 plus 2 in parentheses, which means I go from left to right. And so str1 is going to be concatenated with 5, which is then going to be concatenated with a 2. All right, so that is here. Okay, in this next one, 5 is going to join with str1. And so 5 is going to be in front of it, which is then joined with 2. And then here, 5 plus 2 occurs before the string, and so going from left to right, this one will actually do the sum for us, and then it'll concatenate it with str1, and the multiplication has a higher precedence than addition, so we'll do 5 times 2 is 10, which gets joined with examples with words. Okay. If you wanted to play around with these and see what other types of output would happen, then feel free to do so. All right, next, let's talk about the length. Okay, so to find the length of a string, you refer to the variable .length, and you'll notice it requires no parameters, but it's going to return back an int, and as we learned, we want to do something with that. And so what I've chosen to do with it is just to put it in a print line statement. So str1.length is going to be 18. And so if you wanted to double check, you could just count how long it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, and then str2 is 5 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. str3.length is kind of long. It's going to be 29 characters. And then str4.length is 18 characters because it's referring to the same object as str1. Now remember that the length is 18, but then the index values range from 0 to 17. If the length is 5, the index numbers range from 0 to 4. All right, and then let's look at index of. So remember, this one is searching for the position where whatever the parameter value is first occurs. So in example with words, it's looking for the first occurrence of a W, which it finds it right here. And so that's going to be at index 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I'm looking for whoa, that's going to happen down here. And so again, it's looking for where this starts. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's going to return a 13 and print out. Now if I'm looking at str2, which remember is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm looking for 3, 4, it starts here at starting counting at 0, remember 0, 1, 2. So that's why it's going to display a 2. And if I'm looking for 5, 6, I find 5, but I don't find a 6. And so your computer indicates that it's not found by returning a -1. And so it returns a -1 that we then print. Next, let's look at finding a space. So the first occurrence of the space occurs right here. If I start at 0, that's index 0, index 1, index 2, so that's why it returns a 2. And if I'm looking for the exclamation point, it's the last character in my string. And remember, in a length of 29, the last character is 28. All right, and then some substring. Remember, with substring, we're just pulling out a piece of our string. And so for str1, which was example with words, I want to start my substring at 2 and stop before I get to 6. So here's 0, 1, 2. So I'm starting here. And remember, 6 minus 2 is 4. So I know it's going to be a 4-character substring. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. All right. And here, if I only give you one value, that's telling you to start at that position. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm starting at my P. And I don't tell you where to stop, and that implies that you go to the end. So pull with words. Okay? So with substring 2, if I want to do a substring from 0 to 5, remember that means 5 is not included. So I'm going to basically go including 5 minus 0 is 5 total characters. That's going to end up being the whole thing. And then if I want to do substring starting at 1, that's going to be 2 until the end. So if you don't have the ending, it means go to the end. All right, now this, let me copy this really quick. This is an interesting one because I want to go from 0 up to half the length. Now remember that the length of str3 was 29, right? So the length of this was 29, and if I take half of that, 29 divided by 2 is 14. Remember, we truncate. We just drop the decimal part. And so this is going to be from 0 up to, but not including position 14. So I want 14 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So many options. Okay? And then if I want to do a substring from str.length divided by 2, that means I start at this position and go to the end. Or sorry, I start at position 14, which is here. Right, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I start here and I go to the end. And so that's with strings. And so if you put this together with this, you get the whole thing. Because remember, this is exclusive, but this is where it is including it. So remember, to actually change a string, you have to assign it a new value. This is an example where we don't do any assignment. You'll notice when there's no assignment, str1 before says example with words, str4 also says example with words. And then let's say I do a substring. Remember, this is returning a value. And normally we want to do something with that return value. What's happening here? It's returning a value, but I'm not really making use of it. I'm not assigning it to a variable. I'm not displaying it. So yes, this is technically correct, but it's kind of pointless, to be honest, because you're not doing anything with it. All right? And because we're not doing anything with it, you'll notice after the fact, str1 still says example with words, and str4 still says example with words. So what happens to when I do a new assignment? Okay, when I do a new assignment, all right, so again, str1 and str4 are example with words. When I do a new assignment and I take a substring starting at 2, so remember, let me find this. So remember when I say substring starting at 2, that's 0, 1, 2, I start at the A and go to the end. So ample with words. So I did my substring, and then now I'm assigning it back to str1. So I've basically updated the object that str1 is pointing at. And so that's why after str1 is going to say ample with words, because after I did the substring, I assigned it back. But interestingly, you'll notice that str4 remained the same. And the reason is, think of it as, okay, you and a roommate are sharing the same house, and so you guys have the same address. But if one of you moves to a new house, then the other person still is in the original, it's still this the original address. So only the person who moves gets the new address. Okay, so that's kind of what's happening, is we had two variables pointing to the same address. One object moved to a new address, or one variable moved to a new address, and the other one stayed where it was. And that's really what's happening there. So play around with this. You can't really mess it up. I mean, you can. You'll get compiler errors if you do something wrong, but you can start to read the compiler errors and see how that goes. So if you wanted to change around what your strings are, if you wanted to change around how you're doing substring, play around with it. See what works, see what doesn't work, and have fun with it.